All right, we'll start with the prayer. Om Saraswati Namastubhyam Varade Kamarupini Vidyarambham Karishyami Siddhir Bhavatu Me Sada. Om Ishvaro Gururatmeti Murti Bheda Vibhagine Vyoma Vyapta Dehaya Dakshinaamurtaye Namaha. Sadashiv Samarambham Shankaracharya Madhyamam Asmadacharya Paryantam Vande Guru Paramparam. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Hari Om. Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. Hari Om. Let's take a sankalp. Okay. So we are looking into the topic of Shareera Trayam. Okay, we are doing Jeeva Vichaara. We are analyzing the individual, the Jeeva, and we are analyzing it based on Shareera Trayam. Okay, Shareera Trayam means the individual Jeeva has threefold bodies. The Sookshma, the Sthula Shareer, which is the gross body, the Sookshma Shareer, which is the subtle body, and the Karana Shareer, which is the causal body. Out of which we have seen the Sthula Shareeram in the previous class, the gross body. Now we analyzed the gross body on 4 factors. Firstly, we saw what is the material out of which, the raw material out of which the gross body, the Sthula Shareeram, is made. So the materials we saw are the Pancha Mahabhutas, the 5 elements: Akash, Vayu, Agni, Jala, and Prithvi. The 5 gross elements, the Pancha Mahabhutas, they combine together to form the gross matter. Okay, Sthul matter. And out of that matter, the gross body is formed. So the raw material are the Pancha Mahabhutas. Okay. Then the second factor that we use for analyzing the 3 Shareerams is the components. What are the components of the Sthula Shareeram? So we saw that we can divide it into so many components, right? But just for the ease of study, Shastra divides the Sthula Shareeram into 4 components: the sar, the head, the trunk, the dhad, the hands, and the legs. So these are the components of the Sthula Shareeram. Then the third factor is, what is the function of the Sthula Shareeram? इसका पर्पस क्या है, काम क्या है, हमें ये स्थूल शरीर मिला क्यों है? So the Sthula Shareeram is basically just a rented space. Okay, you can call it a rented house or a rented office through which the Jiva performs all the transactions. एक office में बैठ के Jiva has to perform all the transactions. So this Sthula Shareeram is required as a space for the Jiva to reside. So that is the function. And what is the nature of the Sthula Shareeram? We saw that the Sthula Shareeram is, firstly, it undergoes modification, constantly undergoes modification. We saw the Shad Vikharas. asti, jayate, vardhate, viparinamate, apakshiyate, and vinashyati. These are the shad, the 6 vicharas. The shad vicharas means the 6 modifications that the sthula sharira undergoes. So we said every moment the sthula shariram is undergoing change, is undergoing modification. That is one aspect of the nature of sthula shariram. Secondly, the sthula shariram, it has a certain lifespan. If it is the sthula shariram of a mosquito, it is a much shorter lifetime. For human beings, it is around 100 years plus minus. And for any, like say turtles, maybe they live for 200 years or something like that. So depending on the sthula shariram, depending on what kind of a sthula shariram we have this lifespan. So after that life is over, the sthula shariram degenerates and it merges with the 5 mahabhutas, the 5 elements. It merges with that at the end of its lifespan. That is the second aspect of the nature of the gross body. And the third aspect is that it is evident to both ourselves as well as others. हम भी देख सकते हैं, टच कर सकते हैं, जब और दूसरे भी ये स्थूल शरीर को देख सकते हैं. It is perceivable by both ourselves and others. Okay, so this is how we analyzed one of the threefold bodies, that is the sthula shariram. We analyzed it based on the raw materials, components, nature, and function. Okay, the sthula shariram was really simple and it is very easy to understand. Now let us move further. We'll analyze the Sookshma Shareera. We are going to use the same 4 factors, okay? The raw materials, parts, functions, and nature of the Sookshma Shareera. Okay? So, pehle to Sookshma Shareeram, okay? It is called subtle body in English. Subtle. Okay, now just very generally, if I have to if we have to understand what is the difference between gross and subtle, so gross या स्थूल, स्थूल मतलब जैसे earth होता है, okay, earth या मिट्टी, okay, it is gross, it is physical, right, it is tangible, it is a padarth which you can perceive through all the 5 senses, right? Mitti ya earth, you can perceive it through all the 5 senses. It is absolutely sthul, okay, physical, gross, tangible. Now that is Prithvi or Mitti. Ab let us take Vayu or air, okay. Now if you compare earth and Vayu, then you understand that Vayu is so much more subtle, right? It is much more Sookshma, Mrudu, Maheen compared to Prithvi, right? It can be perceived through probably only one sense, the sense of touch. You can just feel the Vayu. And then if you go to see space or Akash, it is even more Sookshma, it is even more subtle. You can't perceive it through any of your senses, right? You can't perceive, you can't see space, you can't hear space, you can maybe subtly hear space, but you can't perceive it through any other senses. You just have to imagine space, right? You have to use your mind to infer space. So that is like the difference between sthul and Sookshma. Okay, just so that we understand, I have given these examples. So, gross kya hai or subtle kya hai? Okay, so this Sookshma Shareer, it is like that. It is very, very subtle. Therefore, the name Sookshma. It is very Maheen, it is very Mrudu. Now you understood what is Sookshma? What is the meaning of what we mean by gross and what we mean by subtle? Okay, now let us analyze the Sookshma Shareera. The first factor to look into is the material, the raw material with which the Sookshma Shareeram is made. Now the scriptures point out that the body, it is made up of subtle matter. Just like how the gross body was made up of gross matter, physical matter, वैसे ही the subtle body is born out of subtle matter. And that subtle matter, it consists of 5 subtle elements, which are known as the Pancha Sookshma Bhutani. Okay? The gross body was made of Pancha Sthula Bhutas. The same 5 elements are also used over here as the raw material, but the subtle aspect of the same 5 elements. Okay? So subtle space, subtle air, subtle fire, subtle water, and subtle earth. So these subtle elements, they combine together and they make subtle matter, Sookshma matter. And out of that subtle matter, the subtle body is formed. The Sookshma Shareeram is made. So here also, if we go to see the subtle body or the Sookshma Shareeram, that is also made of the 5 elements only. Therefore, Sookshma Shareeram is also a Bhautik Shareer only. It is also made of the Pancha Mahabhutas, the Pancha Bhutas, right? So that is also a Bhautik Shareer only. It is an elemental body. The only difference is that it is made of subtle elements, not the physical gross elements, the subtle elements. Okay? So, and this body, the Sookshma Shareeram, is also made of matter. So, like the gross body, it is also a material body only, but subtle matter and gross matter. वो difference खाली ध्यान में रखना है. In the raw materials, that is the only difference. Okay. Now, after the raw materials, we have to look into what are the components of the subtle body. No. So, the components of the gross body were very easy. We can see them. It was easy to identify them. The components of the subtle body, obviously, they are subtler. So, we need to pay a little more attention over here. Okay. Now, the scriptures point out that the subtle body, it has got 19 components. 19. Okay. Each component of the subtle body is actually one instrument of transaction. Okay. Now, see, our gross body, like we said, the gross body is just a house or an office. It is just a box. It's just a space. Okay. Residing in which the Jeeva can transact. But only box, only building se to kuch nahi hota hai na. We need instruments also, right? We need pen, paper, computers. We need all sorts of instruments for transaction to happen, right? So, these instruments, they belong to the Sookshma Shareeram. Okay, the instruments of transaction. So, the subtle body has 19 parts. So, 19 parts, and so it's not going to be as short as the Sthula Shareeram, only 4 parts. It's going to be a little longer. Thoda lamba hone wala hai. ठीक है? So 19 parts. Which are these 19 parts? Let's look into them. So although this is going to be a little longer, but it is extremely important because after understanding the parts of the Sookshma Shareeram, no, it clears out a lot of confusion that we have about ourselves. So these are the parts. Firstly, the Pancha Jnanendriyas, the 5 organs of knowledge, the 5 sense organs of knowledge. Then Pancha Karmendriyas, the 5 sense organs of action. Then the Pancha Pranas, means the 5 physiological systems. And finally, the 4 Antakaranani, means the 4 internal instruments. Okay. So 5 Jnanendriyas, sense organs of knowledge. 5 Karmendriyas, sense organs of action. 5 Pranas, that makes it 15. 5 Pranas means the 5 physiological systems. And 4 Antakaranani, the internal instruments. These are the 19 parts of our Sookshma Shareeram, of our subtle body. Let us look into these 19 in detail. So, let's start with the Pancha Jnanendriyas, 5 sense organs of knowledge. So, they are the ears, the skin, the eyes, the tasting tongue, and the nose. Okay, the 5 organs of knowledge. This we have to remember always. Okay, it is a very important information that we need to have. क्या-क्या चीजों से हम information receive करते हैं? Once we know that, then we can put filters, right, in those. So, like we say, na, Shabda, Sparsha, Rupa, Rasa, Gandha. These are the senses. So, these are the sense objects. So, associated with them, which are the organs? So, ears, skin, eyes, tasting tongue, and nose. So, they are called the Jnanendriyas because it is only through these 5 organs that we receive information from the external world. Right? And only based on this information, based on the knowledge that we get from the Jnanendriyas, we do all the transaction based on this Jnanam, which we receive from the Jnanendriyas. Right? All our transaction happens based on the knowledge that we receive from these 5 Jnanendriyas. So the eyes, firstly, the eyes, they are meant to gather the knowledge of color and form, Rupa and Rang. Okay, knowledge of colors and forms. So it is called Rupa Grahaka Indriya or Chakshu. Chakshu means eyes. They are the Rupa Grahaka Indriya. They receive the knowledge regarding the form and the color of an object. Then we have got ears. They are meant to gather knowledge of sound. So, Shabda Grahaka Indriya is Shrotra Indriya. Shrotra Indriya means ears. They are Shabda Grahaka, means they receive the knowledge of sound. Then we have got nose. So, that is then an organ meant to gather knowledge of all forms of smell. Gandha Grahaka Indriya, Ghrana Indriya. Ghrana Indriya means nose, organ of smell. And the 4th organ is the tongue. It is meant to gather knowledge of all forms of taste. So it is called Rasa Grahaka Indriya, Rasana. The tongue is called Rasana in Sanskrit. It is a Rasa Grahaka Indriya. And finally, we have got the skin. It pervades all over the body and it is meant to gather the knowledge of varieties of touch, feel. So hard touch, soft touch, cold, hot, all of them. So Sparsha Grahaka Indriya is Twak Indriya. Twak Indriya is the organ of skin, which receives the knowledge of touch or feel. So these are the 5 Jnanendriyas. Okay, ears, nose, eyes, tasting tongue, and skin. These are the 5 Jnanendriyas. So now we should note a very, very important point here. Okay, you have to pay good attention over here. Now, when we refer to the Jnanendriyas or the sense organs, okay, we are not talking about the physical part which belongs to the physical body. Okay, we are not talking about the organ which belongs to the Sthula Shareeram. But when we talk about Jnanendriyas, we are referring to the subtle power of perception which is acting behind these organs. For example, when we say that eyes, okay, when we say eyes as the sense organ, okay, eyes, when we look at eyes as the Jnana Indriya, we are not talking about the physical eye, okay? We are not talking about the eyeballs. We are not talking about the physical organ eye. The physical eye, the physical organ eye, that belongs to the Sthula Shareeram. That belongs to the physical body, the gross body. But here, as a Jnanendriya, when we say eyes, we are talking about eye as the sense organ, okay? Which means the power to see, which means the drishti which is behind the physical organ eye. That belongs to the subtle body, okay? Not the physical organ, the power behind it, the shakti behind it, the drishti behind the eye. That belongs to the Sookshma Shareeram. Similarly, the physical organ ear, okay, even the internal parts, even the eardrum and all that, all those things belong to the Sthula Shareeram only. It belongs to the gross body. But the power of hearing, the Shravan Shakti, that belongs to the subtle body. Same for all the 5 organs of knowledge, okay. There, can you distinguish now between what is the subtle body and what is the sthula, the organ? The Shakti behind it belongs to the subtle body, and the organ itself belongs to the Sthula Shareeram, the gross body. That is why only, we see so many people whose the physical structure of their eye or ear, it is perfect, okay? Even the doctors say that there is nothing wrong with the physical eye or the physical ear, the physical structure. But yet they cannot see, or yet they may be deaf. The reason for that is the gross organ is perfect. The Sthula Shareeram is perfect, no problem. But the power, the Shakti to see or hear, that is absent. So the Sthula Shareeram may be fine, but the Sookshma Shareeram has defect in that particular area. Got it? So these are the first 5 components of the Sookshma Shareeram, the Jnanendriyams, or the sense organs of knowledge. Now, let's go to the next 5. The next group of 5 is called the Karmendriyas, or the 5 sense organs of action. Now, the Pancha Jnanendriyas, okay, or the sense organs of knowledge, they were meant for input, right? We were receiving all the Jnanam from outside, we were receiving. So they were meant for input. Whereas these Karmendriyas, the sense organs of action, they are meant for output. So Jnanendriyas is meant for receiving the stimuli or receiving the information from outside, whereas the Karmendriyas are meant for expressing our responses. It is for output. So Jnanendriyas are the receiving instruments and Karmendriyas are the responding instruments. Samjhe? One is for input, one is for output. And the 5 Karmendriyas are Vak, Pani, Padav, Upastha and Payu. Now I'm purposely saying these Sanskrit words. See, when you remember these Sanskrit words, no, it becomes very easy for you. Like I had told you about the सबसे पहले षड वैरीज के बारे में also. So काम क्रोध लोभ मोह मद मात्सर्य. It just comes very easily to you. So try and remember the Sanskrit names. Like for Jnanendriyas also, you can remember Shabda, Sparsha, Rupa, Rasa, Gandha. So the organs associated with that. Same way, Karmendriyas, Vak, Pani, Padav, Upastha and Payu. So Vak means talking tongue. First one, that is the organ of speech, the Vak Indriya, talking tongue. Then Pani. Pani means hands. Padav, legs. Okay, Padu or Padav means two legs. Upastha. Upastha means organ of procreation. And Payu, organ of evacuation. So the first one, Vak. Vak Indriyam, that is the organ of speech. So we speak and we respond. We give our verbal response through our talking tongue, right? So I'm constantly saying talking tongue and tasting tongue because the tongue is one instrument which acts as a Jnanendriya also, and it acts as a Karmendriya also. So tongue acts as a Jnanendriya of receiving taste information, right? And it acts as a Karmendriya for giving out speech responses. So that is why we differentiate. Talking tongue is a Karmendriya, tasting tongue is a Jnanendriya. So we are giving an output through our tongue. It is a Karmendriya. Then Pani. Pani means hands. We do varieties of actions like we shake hands, we cook, we write, we create so many beautiful things. We play musical instrument. And we might do some violent actions or bad actions also using our hands. But basically it is a Karmendriya. We do actions using our hands. Then Pada. Pada means organ of movement. Means our legs or feet. The organ of locomotion by which we move from one place to other. Then Upastha. Upastha means the organ of procreation or the organ of reproduction, because of which alone the species continue as a lineage, which alone prevents the species from extinction. And lastly, Payu. Payu is the organ of evacuation, removing waste. So these are the Pancha Karmendriyas. Vak means talking tongue. Pani means hands. Padav, legs. Upastha, organ of procreation. And Payu, organ of evacuation. Vak, Pani, Padav, Upastha and Payu. So these are the 5 sense organs of action, Karmendriyas. Now again, very important thing to remember and understand and note that Karmendriya, when we say, again, we do not mean the physical organ which we can touch, which we can feel. We are not talking about the physical organ. Not the physical hands or the physical legs, but the Shakti behind it, the subtle body. Again, we see so many people, right, whose physical organ tongue is intact or physical legs seem perfect. Like they seem absolutely normal, but they can't walk or they can't talk. Again, this is for the same reason that although the Sthula Shareeram is fine, it is perfect, but they can't walk because there is some problem with the Sookshma Shareeram. There is some defect in that particular Karmendriya. That particular Karmendriya is not functional. The Sthula Shareeram is fine. Clear? So 5 jnanendriyas with which we receive input, we receive the knowledge from outside, and 5 karmendriyas with which we give our response. Now let us look at the Pancha Pranas. Okay. So the 5-fold pranas, the Pancha Pranas, they can be called as the energy generating system, or the power generating system, basically the power behind different physiological systems of the body. See, we keep on doing actions all the time, right? We constantly keep using our jnanendriyas, we constantly keep using our karmendriyas. That means we constantly keep needing energy, right? That means our body has to constantly keep generating this energy. And it is the prana shakti that generates and gives energy to all the organs. Okay. Let us look at the Pancha Pranas. So these are the Pancha Pranas. Prana, Apan, Vyan, Udan, and Saman. Again, remember the names. Try to memorize them. It will be very helpful. Prana, Apan, Udan, Vyan, and Saman. Now, Pran. Pran means the respiratory system. Okay. Apan. Apan is responsible for any sort of waste removal from the body. Prana is the respiratory system. Apan is the waste removal system. It goes downwards. Waste removal system. Then Vyana. Vyana is responsible for circulation in the body. Then Udan. Udan, see, Udan is a little, it operates as a reversing system. Like at the time of death, okay, all the body processes are reversed because it is time for the body to die. So it is this Udana which helps to eject the subtle body out of the Sthula Shareeram. The Sookshma Shareeram is ejected out of this Sthula Shareeram with the help of the Udan. It is one of the pranas, Udan. And also other reversal functions at the time of some kind of emergencies. Like if we ingest some toxic substance, it has to be reversed, right? It has to be thrown out of the body. A reversal has to happen. The normal process is downwards. It has to be removed from the body. So Udana is used. Even like any of the reflexes, that immediate reflexes that come. Even if a hair gets stuck and the immediate reflex that we get, that is all Udan. So the reversal function, the reversal system. And finally, the Saman. Saman is responsible for converting food into nutrition. Saman, वो मतलब जो भी हम खाते हैं वो ऐसे तोड़ के क्रश करके एक समान कर देता है. Like there is no difference between roti and sabji and milkshake and nothing. Everything becomes ek saman. So that is how you remember Saman. Okay, it is responsible for converting food into nutrition. So these are the 5 primary vital forces. Okay, the 5 primary vital forces. Pran, Apan, Vyan, Udan, and Saman. So Pran, which is responsible for breathing. Then Udan, Apan, which is responsible for excretion and evacuation. Then circulation happens through Vyan. Vyan is responsible for circulation and coordination. So any kind of circulation, blood, lymph, then the secretions, then even the messages, the the messages, the neural connections. That is Vyan. And passing off or death, that is Udan. And digestion and assimilation is Saman. Okay? So these are the 5 physiological systems, the 5 primary vital forces behind the physiological systems. And generally before eating, okay, there is a practice of chanting this. A lot of people say this: Pranaya Swaha, Apanaya Swaha, Vyanaya Swaha, Udanaya Swaha, Samanaya Swaha. So what are they doing? It is Annaprasanam, done before eating. Means, so all these physiological systems, all these Pancha Pranas, they are considered like the fire of a yagna. And whatever food I am consuming, actually I am offering it into this yagna. It is becoming the havis which is being offered into the yagna. So when I say pranaya swaha, means I'm offering it to pran. Udanaya swaha, offering it to udan. Samanaya swaha, I'm offering it. So I chant this before consuming any food, making the whole process of consuming food into a yagna. So it becomes such a beautiful practice, right? So the whole practice of eating food becomes like a yagna. Because we are offering food to the yagna, which is in the form of these physiological systems, the fire that we have inside our body, because of which alone the energy generation is possible. That is why. So, Pran, Apan, Vyan, Udan, and Saman. These are called the Pancha Pranas. They are the life-giving forces. They function behind the Jnanendriyas and Karmendriyas. They give energy to the Jnanendriyas and Karmendriyas. They make them work. Okay. So with this, we saw the 15 components of the Sookshma Shareeram. Which are they? The Pancha Jnanendriyas, the Pancha Karmendriyas, and the Pancha Pranas. The Pancha Jnanendriyas were for receiving, which are ears, eyes, nose, tongue, tasting tongue, and skin. Then Pancha Karmendriyas for giving out responses. Vak, Pani, Padav, Upastha, and Payu. So they are the Pancha Karmendriyas. And then the Pancha Pranas. Pancha Pranas are Pran, Apan, Vyan, Udan, and Saman. Pancha Pranas. So 15 components we have seen. Clear? Like these 15 are simple, nothing much to have doubts in, right? Okay. Now we have got 4 internal organs, the internal instruments. They are called Antakaranani or Antakaranam. Antakaranam means they are the instruments. Very beautiful word, very important word. Okay, I'll explain at the end of this that why it is so important. Antakaranam, it is an internal instrument. So let us see which are the parts of the Antakaranam. So these are the 4-fold internal organs. So these 4-fold internal organs, we generally, very loosely, we call them as mana or mind. So when we loosely say my mind, it actually talks about all these 4 organs, the 4 instruments. Or we sometimes even call it Chittam, Chitta, like we say Chitta Shuddhi, right? Chitta Shuddhi is same as Antakaran Shuddhi. Or we even say, we call it Buddhi also sometimes. So we use different words for this 4-fold instruments, okay? first is manaha or mind. Second is buddhi or intellect. See, like, note very carefully that manaha and buddhi are two different things. Okay, they are not the same. They are two different instruments, and we always mistake them as one, right? So manaha is a different instrument, buddhi is a different instrument. Then the third one is chittam or memory. And the fourth one is ahankara or ego. So mind, that is manaha, intellect, that is buddhi, chittam, memory, and ahankara, ego. And also remember that when we say the mind or the or the antakaranam or the chittam, again, we are not talking about the physical organ brain, nor are we talking about the shakti behind the brain. Okay, in fact, we cannot even talk about a physical location of the antakaranam. But if we really have to talk about its location, then Shastra says something, Shastra says it is somewhere near your heart. They call it guha. Guha means cave. So somewhere near the heart cavity, somewhere in the heart cavity. But the location is irrelevant, because if you go to see, it is prevalent everywhere, right? Like we say, our gut also has intelligence, right? I have a gut feeling. My gut is saying this. Or cell has memory. So basically, pinpointing a location is not important for our study. But understanding these fourfold internal organs, that is the most significant thing. Understanding what is their function, how they are working, how this antakaranam is operating. So the four parts, mana, buddhi, chittam, and ahankara. Let us look into them now. So mana or mind, that stands for all forms of emotional faculty. All the emotions, okay, that come from the manaha, the mind. So roughly we can translate mind as the emotional faculty as well as the doubting faculty. Like, see, emotions we know: love, kindness, fear, anger, sorrow, anxiety, etc. Like all sorts of emotions, we know them. All these emotions, they belong to the mind or the manaha. And also the doubts also belong to the mind only. Tattvabodha defines manaha or mind as sankalpa vikalpa atmakam manaha. Sankalpa vikalpa means it is always in a dilemma, whether I should do this or should I do that, whether I should go to class or watch a web series, whether I should get up or I should sleep in, whether I should pursue science or arts, have I locked my house properly or not, have I turned off the gas or the geyser, or I have forgotten it on only. So whenever we experience any emotion or any doubt, you have to understand that it is coming from the mind. It is coming from the manaha. Okay. So this part of the antakaranam is acting. Whenever you are feeling any kind of emotions, be an observer. Oh, this is coming from the mind. This is coming from the manaha. Whenever any doubt is arising, coming from the mind or manaha. Even any kind of shallow thinking. Okay. Impulsive decisions, impulsive reactions, without giving deeper thought to the situation. कुछ भी सोचे समझे बिना एकदम impulsively react कर दिया. That is coming from the manaha. Okay, that is coming from the mind. So all these things, all these emotions, doubts, shallow reactions, impulse, all those things are coming from the manaha or mind. ठीक है? Now let us go to the second one, which is called the buddhi. The buddhi or intellect, it is the rational faculty. It reasons out things. Okay, it is the judging faculty. It is the discriminating faculty. वो discriminate करता है क्या सही है क्या गलत है. It is the knowing faculty. It is the decision making faculty. Tattvabodha calls it defines buddhi as nischayatmika buddhi. Nischayatmika means it makes decisions. It discriminates between right and wrong. So what should be done, what should not be done, differentiating and then deciding based on analysis that this is dharma, this is adharma. So when you think, when you analyze, and then when you respond to situations, rather than reacting to them impulsively, that time your buddhi is acting and not your manaha. You are understanding the difference that when your intellect or your buddhi is acting and when your mind is acting? Understanding this difference, no, it is a key to solving so many problems. Understanding when your mind is acting and when your buddhi is acting, when manaha is acting and when your buddhi is acting. Remember the Ratha Kalpana? What was the mind? Mind was the reins and buddhi was the charioteer. The charioteer was holding the reins tight. Buddhi to kidhar bhi jayega. It's the emotional faculty. Wherever the emotions will take, wherever the sense objects will take, the buddhi will want to go. The manaha, the mind will want to go. But it is the buddhi, which is the nischayatmika buddhi, which is the discriminative faculty, which is the rational instrument that holds the reins of the mind tight. Understood the difference between your mind and buddhi? So these are the first two most important aspects of our antakaran. Okay, the two most important instruments. The third one is the chittam. We say mana, buddhi, then chittam. So the definition that Tattvabodha gives is chintanam kartru iti chittam. So chittam, it is the memory faculty. It receives or records our experiences in the mind. It stores all the memories that we have of this janma, past janma, all the memories. That is called the chittam, where it is stored. Now, when we record something on a physical device, maybe like a camera or a tape recorder or something, at the max, two things are recorded, the audio and the video. So only the shabda and the rupa, they are recorded. But Bhagwan has given us the greatest recorder, and that is the chittam. It records all the five sensory data. Shabda, it records the sound. Jo bhi suna hai, music or anything, any kinds of words, it records, it stores. So it records the sound. Then sparsh. So why don't we like kuch garam ek baar pakad liya, fir wapas kyun nahi pakadte hai? Because of the memory, it is stored in there. So sparsh, it records the feel. Then rupa, it records the form and color. Rasa, it records the taste. That is how we know that, oh, I don't like this particular vegetable. Because it records the taste and it stores it in memory. And then gandha, smell. So such an awesome recorder. We remember all the five sensory data from all the five sense organs. They are recorded by the chittam faculty of the antakarana. So we have got this chittam, which can remember what happened even 20, 30, 40, 50, 100 years ago. It has a fantastic memory. Shastra says that not only this janma, it remembers the past life also. So, like, so many times it happens to us also. Okay, even without learning something formally, okay, we feel that something is already known to us. कितनी सारी चीज बहुत आसानी से like it comes to us very naturally because somewhere it is stored in the Chittam. Like a music prodigy. A music prodigy feels that she knows music already without even formally learning it, right? A mathematical genius. So a mathematical genius has some of those memories already retained in her Chittam. A spiritual prodigy. A spiritual prodigy feels he already knows these things from before. So basically what happens that every experience that we get, no, that is associated with a number of factors. Okay. It is associated with people, sounds, taste, smell, touch, lots of things. Okay. So basically the five senses plus the mind. So कुछ भी हम experience करते हैं, it keeps getting registered. It keeps getting registered. And any experience, it produces three possible outcomes. Either any experience is a positive experience, or a negative experience, or a neutral experience. So neutral experience का इतना कुछ impression नहीं बनता है. But if it is a pleasurable, that is a positive experience, or a painful, that is a negative experience, then it makes impression on our mind. Okay? The impression that is made by our experience, that is called samskara. Okay? Now this impression, this memory, it sinks into the Chittam. It sinks into the Chitta, it goes into the subconscious mind. And it can stay there, dormant. It can stay there sleeping for how much ever time. But whenever there is a trigger, maybe after some time or after some days or some months, even some years, whenever there is a trigger, the memory activates. And this dormant samskara, this sleeping samskara, which was lying dormant in our Chittam, due to some trigger, it gets activated. And this activation of a dormant samskara, then it produces a desire either to repeat that action or to avoid that action, or to repeat the experience or avoid the experience. Like a very crude example, if I could give you, then an alcoholic. Okay. Now, and when he consumed alcohol, certain experiences got registered in his mind. Now, probably they were pleasurable for him. Now, suppose he passes by an alcohol shop, a liquor shop or something, it acted as a trigger. And that trigger brought that dormant experience, which was stored in the Chittam, it awakened it. It brought it to the surface. So usko wo experience yaad aa gaya. And now because of that samskara, because of that impression, he wants to do it again. Understood how samskaras act? And when you again and again and again do certain things, it reinforces the samskaras. It makes it deeper. It makes it stronger. And a reinforced samskara or a group of samskara, then they produce a vasana. Vasana means a habitual pattern. So that impression is called samskara, and because of that repeatedly doing that, it creates a habitual pattern, which is called vasana. So of our habitual patterns of our behavior, of our tendencies, of our inclinations. कि सुबह उठ के कॉफी चाहिए ही. That is a vasana. It is a habitual pattern that has formed because मैंने एक बार कॉफी पिया था. That day I was fresh throughout the day, or at least the first half of the day. So that kind of a memory is stored in my Chittam. Because of which maybe I wanted to try it the second time, maybe third time. Then it reinforced and it became a habitual pattern, a vasana. Understood? So this is how the Chittam works. So we saw the manaha, that is the mind, then the intellect, buddhi, then Chittam, the memory faculty. And the fourth one, which is the antakarana, which is the ahankara. Ahankara, which is the ego. Aham karta iti ahankara. I am doing. I am the karta. I am the bhokta. When I associated with those things, the faculty of self-reference. Okay, it is very well developed only in human beings. Animals are not self-conscious regarding their status, their pedigree, nothing. Animals don't know that. No Alsatian dog knows that I am Alsatian and I belong to a superior breed or something. But human beings are self-conscious about being superior, inferior. So this self-referral faculty, that is called ego or ahankara. I am this body, this physical body. I am my thoughts, the mind. I am my senses, means the feelings, whatever I'm feeling. I am that. So whenever I associated, whenever this I, okay, I got hurt, I felt sad, I am hungry, I want to achieve this, I. So whenever that I comes, that is ahankara. I and mine, ahankara and mamakara. That is what we call ego in this sense. Ego means associating with this body, mind, sense complex. That is ahankara. Okay? So these four put together, they are called Chatvari Antakaranani. Please remember this carefully. It is extremely important. Manaha, Manaha, Buddhi, Chittam and Ahankara. So totally we have seen all the 19 components of the Sookshma Shareeram. We have seen the Pancha Jnanendriyas or the 5 sense organs of knowledge. Then Pancha Karmendriyas, the 5 sense organs of action. The 5 pranas, the 5 vital forces, the 5 pranas behind the physiological systems. And then we saw the 4 parts of the antakaranam, mana, buddhi, chitta, ahankara. So total 19 organs. Okay. Any doubts so far? Briefly, I'll tell you, we looked into the Sthula Shareeram first, the 4 factors we used to analyze the Sthula Shareeram. Then we started with the Sookshma Shareeram, the subtle body. We saw first we analyzed it based on the raw material. The 5 subtle elements form the raw material of the Sookshma Shareeram. And then we looked into the 19 components, the 19 parts of the Sookshma Shareeram. The Pancha Jnanendriyas, Pancha Karmendriyas, Pancha Pranas, and 4 Antakaran. Okay, just to give you an overview. Any doubts? Right. So after, so the question is, in one of the classes you mentioned that after death, the Sookshma Shareeram remains. Yes, we will look into that when we look at the nature of the Sookshma Shareera. Like the Sthula Shareera, it disintegrates. It has a lifespan. Like that, the Sookshma Shareeram also has a lifespan which is way longer than the physical body. So even after the physical body, the gross body dies, the Sookshma Shareeram still continues to live. Okay? And yes, like last class, somebody had asked about the disease, that even if we get regenerated every moment, new cells are formed, why still the disease continues? That is to do with the Chittam, to do with the Antakaranam, to do with the Samskaras. If there is a pattern which is written, the cells have memories, your DNA has memories, unless until it is rewritten, it is overwritten with a stronger or a positive pattern, the disease pattern is going to continue, right? So that memory has to be overridden with a positive memory. All right.
So a very interesting class today. Talking about the Sookshma Shareera and the 19 components. Are we going to reference or take reference or refer to Panchikaran at any time, because it overlaps a lot?
Sorry?
Are we going to take reference or move discuss about the Panchikaranam at any
Panchikaranam, yes, definitely. But Panchikaranam will happen after the analysis of the Jeeva. When we look into how the cosmos is formed, when we look into the cosmology part, when we look into Samashti Vichaara, that time we'll be doing the Panchikaranam, that how these 5 elements actually came into being, how the 5 sthula elements actually came into being. We'll look into that in detail.
Okay, you have to make an announcement if you remember.
Oh, yes. Just an announcement that we'll not be having class for the coming 2 weeks. That is 2nd and 9th. There'll be no class. We'll continue from 16th. So since this has been a little complex topic, too many things to remember, more than it to be complex. It is easy to understand, but a lot of things to remember. So it will be better if we can revisit this class, and we'll take a break of 2 weeks, and I'll see you again on the 16th of April.
A lot of contemplation from our side required now to digest all that we've done till now.
Yes, use these 2 weeks for that. It will be important. If nothing, if suppose you don't get time to revisit the class, at least revisit the WhatsApp chats, because a lot of summary I keep posting. Maybe that will help to reinforce, to make it into a samskara, a deeper samskara.
Mananam.
Yeah, for your mananam. That's right. Thank you, Deepak ji. Om Purnamada Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnamevavashishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Hari Om. Hari. Also, one more request. In these 2 weeks, try and distinguish between these 2 bodies. That, oh, this is my Sthula Shareeram. This is coming from my Sookshma Shareeram. Okay, and Sookshma Shareeram also, I am receiving it. I am responding. And the most important thing that we need to be aware of and distinguish is, this is coming from the Manaha and this is coming from the Buddhi. Most important thing, be aware of this. Okay, now that you know all the components, start being aware of which particular instrument is acting right now. Then you can start mastering it. Okay.